There is a strange moment that happens to almost everyone who becomes good at something. At first, you know nothing. So you watch carefully. You ask questions. You notice small details. You make mistakes. And because you know you are a beginner, you remain open. But then something changes. You gain experience. You become competent. People begin asking for your advice. And slowly, almost invisibly, the very thing that once made you wiser begins to disappear. Curiosity. You stop asking, "What is happening here?" and begin saying, "I already know what this is." You stop seeing the person in front of you. Instead, you see the category you have placed them in. You stop hearing a new idea. You hear something that reminds you of an old idea. You stop meeting reality as it is and begin meeting your interpretation of reality. This is one of the quiet dangers of knowledge. Knowledge can illuminate the world, but knowledge can also stand between you and the world. More than 2,000 years ago, Taoist philosophy offered a strange answer to this problem. Become empty. Not ignorant. Not foolish. Not passive. Empty. Because sometimes, the only way to see something new is to temporarily forget what you think you already know. Pause. In Chapter 11 of the Tao Te Ching, Laozi gives us one of the simplest and most powerful images in Taoist philosophy. A wheel has spokes, but it works because there is empty space at its center. A room has walls, but we live inside the empty space those walls create. A vessel is made from clay, but what allows it to hold water is not the clay. It is the emptiness inside. Think about that. The solid part gives the vessel its shape, but the empty part gives it its purpose. And this idea is easy to miss, because modern life teaches us to value what can be added. More money, more qualifications, more information, more followers, more experience, more possessions, more opinions, more answers. We are constantly trying to fill ourselves. But Laozi asks us to notice something completely different. What if usefulness does not come only from what you possess? What if it also comes from the space you preserve? A cup filled to the edge cannot receive anything more, and neither can a mind. This does not mean knowledge is bad. The clay of the cup matters. Without the clay, there is no vessel. Your experience is like that clay. Your education is like that clay. Your memories are like that clay. They give your mind structure. But if you fill every empty space with conclusions, assumptions, labels, and certainty, then the vessel loses its ability to receive. And this is where the Taoist idea becomes practical. Imagine walking through a forest. Perhaps you know the names of the trees, the species, the plants, the birds. You know which leaves belong to which family. You understand the ecosystem. That knowledge is valuable. But now, for a moment, stop naming anything. Do not say oak. Do not say pine. Do not say beautiful. Do not say useful. Do not even say forest. Just look. Listen to the movement of the branches. Notice the changing pattern of sunlight. Smell the wet earth. Feel the temperature of the air. Nothing outside you has changed, but something inside you has. You are no longer constantly translating experience into concepts. For a moment, you are simply meeting what is there. The Taoist thinker Zhuangzi explored something very close to this. In one famous passage, we encounter an idea often translated as fasting of the mind. This is not fasting from food. It is an inner clearing, a quieting of the mind, so that we do not immediately force everything we encounter through our old judgments. Instead of instantly deciding what something means, we wait. We listen. We allow reality to arrive. before deciding what reality must be. Elsewhere in the Zhuangzi, there is another remarkable expression: sitting and forgetting. Again, this does not mean destroying your memory. It does not mean becoming unconscious. It points toward loosening your grip on the mental structures through which you normally experience life. Your labels, your status, your assumptions, your certainty, even your fixed idea of who you are. To forget, in this Taoist sense, is sometimes to stop forcing the present to resemble the past. Think about how often conflict begins with 3 invisible words. I already know. Your partner becomes quiet, and immediately you think, I know why they are angry. A coworker criticizes your idea. You think, I know what kind of person he is. Someone disagrees with you, and before they finish speaking, you are already preparing your answer. You are no longer listening. You are searching your memory for ammunition. The other person may still be talking, but the conversation has already ended inside your mind. That is what a full cup looks like. And intelligence does not always protect us from this. Sometimes it makes the problem worse. The more knowledge you have, the more explanations you can produce, the more experience you have, the easier it becomes to say, I have seen this before. Maybe you have, but maybe you have only seen something similar. And the difference between those 2 possibilities can change everything. Life is always moving. People change. Circumstances change. You change. But our concepts often remain frozen, and suffering begins when we demand that a changing world obey a fixed picture inside our heads. Now imagine something very ordinary. You manage a small team. You have worked in your industry for 15 years. A younger employee asks for a meeting. They tell you that part of the way you run projects is creating unnecessary delays. Immediately, your mind reacts. I have been doing this longer than you. You do not understand the bigger picture. We tried something like that years ago. This is simply how the industry works. Perhaps all of those statements are true, but notice what happened. Before investigating the idea, you filled the cup. So try something different. For the first 10 minutes, do not defend your system. Instead, ask 3 questions. What exactly are you seeing? Can you show me one specific example? And if we changed it, what do you think would happen? Then listen. Listen until they have completely finished. You do not have to agree. You do not have to pretend your experience has no value. Simply delay judgment. For 10 minutes. Become empty. Maybe the employee is wrong, but now you understand why. Maybe they are partly right, or maybe they see something that 15 years of experience prevented you from noticing, precisely because you stopped looking. That is the empty cup in modern life. It is not surrendering your intelligence. It is creating enough space for intelligence to work. And this distinction matters. Forget what you know does not mean becoming uninformed. If you are a doctor, remember medicine. If you are an engineer, remember engineering. If you are driving, remember the rules of the road. Taoism is not asking you to abandon useful knowledge. It is asking you not to worship it. There is a difference. Knowledge should be a tool, but the moment your knowledge becomes your identity, questioning your knowledge begins to feel like questioning you. And then, learning becomes painful. You defend outdated beliefs, because admitting they are outdated feels like losing part of yourself. The empty cup offers another possibility. Hold knowledge lightly. Use what works. Release what no longer fits, and leave room for what you have not yet discovered. This resembles water, one of Taoism's favorite images. Water does not insist on one permanent shape. Pour it into a narrow vessel, and it becomes narrow. Pour it into a wide bowl, and it becomes wide. Its adaptability is not weakness. It is precisely what allows water to continue moving. A rigid mind knows what everything should be. An empty mind can discover what things actually are. There is a paradox here. Experts possess something beginners do not. Experience. But beginners sometimes possess something experts have lost. Freshness. They have not yet learned what they are supposed to ignore. So they ask strange questions. Why do we do it this way? Why can't it work differently? What happens if we remove this step? Experts sometimes laugh at these questions. And yes, sometimes the questions are naive. But sometimes they expose assumptions that have been invisible for years. The wise person therefore learns how to become a beginner again, not because they know nothing, but because they understand that knowledge has limits. You can become experienced without becoming closed. You can become confident without becoming certain. You can have strong opinions while remaining willing to change them. And that may be one of the deepest forms of intellectual freedom. Pause. Now, here is our channel's perspective. The real opposite of wisdom is not ignorance. It is certainty. An ignorant person who knows they are ignorant can learn. But a knowledgeable person who believes they have nothing left to learn has reached a wall. So we do not interpret the empty cup as a command to erase your past. Your past matters. Your mistakes matter. Your education matters. Your experience matters. But none of them should be allowed to imprison the present. The goal is not to have an empty head. The goal is to have an available mind. A mind capable of saying, "This is what I currently believe, but let me look again." That sentence may contain more wisdom than 1,000 confident opinions, because the world is always larger than our explanation of it, and reality has no obligation to remain consistent with yesterday's understanding. Tonight, try something simple. Choose one thing you feel certain about, not something trivial. Choose a judgment, a person you believe you understand, a problem you believe has only one solution, a belief you have not questioned for a long time. And ask yourself, what would I notice if, for 5 minutes, I temporarily forgot my conclusion? Do not force yourself to change your mind. That would simply be another form of forcing. Just create space. Look again. Listen again. Ask again. Perhaps nothing changes. Perhaps everything does. An empty cup does not decide what will be poured into it. It simply becomes capable of receiving. And perhaps this is why Laozi placed so much value on emptiness. We spend our lives trying to become more informed, more successful, more certain, more complete. But there are moments when wisdom moves in the opposite direction. Remove something, an assumption, a label, a judgment, the need to be right, the need to already understand. And suddenly, there is space. Space to listen, space to learn, space to change, space for life to surprise you again. The wise person does not empty the cup because knowledge has no value. They empty it because tomorrow may contain something their knowledge has never seen, and only the empty space can receive it.